But let's get to the politics first. I'm delighted to have in the studio with me here Liz Peek, columnist with FoxNews.com, of course, and the Fiscal Times, and Eric Yaverbaum, associate publisher of Social Media Mags. Good to see you both.
Great to be here.
So yesterday was an entertaining day in Washington, as if we haven't had many of those recently.
The circus goes on.
Liz, what do you make of the pick of former Senator Chuck Hagel in particular as the next defense secretary? He's a Republican, so there was the bipartisan nature of it, which on the face of it is a good thing. And yet, many Republicans very, very unhappy with this choice. Senator Lindsey Graham, for instance, saying it was an in-your-face nomination. It's going to be a tough hearing, it seems.
I think it could be a tough hearing. Probably
rightfully
more
so?
Well, I think Hagel is completely attuned with the Obama White House, and so possibly now we will have a debate on where the Obama team is taking defense spending and our sort of defense posture. I think Hagel's, people are talking about him on the left and the right as having, created enemies. On the left because of his homophobia, if in fact that exists, and on the right because of his questionable relationship or support of Israel. I do think it's an interesting thing for Obama to tread even further into this issue of how strongly does he support Israel, because this has been a recurring theme, right? Since 2009, when he went to Cairo, made his big address to the Muslim world, and in that address really elated Muslims by calling on Israel to stop settlements. The first president who had really kind of said, okay, I'm going to have an even hand in this, and this is what I demand. American Jewish support for him has wavered. I know a lot of people here in New York who have did not support him this time around, particularly on this issue. So I just think it's an interesting thing to kind of further that narrative, if you will, and I think it makes you realize that this is not a narrative, it's not a political position. I think Obama really feels like he's the person to kind of take a more middle road in the Middle East, and that's contentious.
Eric, 2 points from you. First of all, I wonder if you think President Obama is deliberately picking a fight here and saying, I'm in charge, I'll get who I want. You talked down Susan Rice, the Secretary of State, this one I'm going to push for. And secondly, your views of Chuck Hagel on Israel, I think would be particularly interesting.
Is he picking a fight? He's always picking a fight. I mean, that's what Washington is now. Everybody picks fights. That's what we do. So yes, he's picking a fight. I think, this is the one place, it's like a shiny object of all the fights that could go on with Senate confirmations. This one, Brennan's going to get in. I think he's going to be like a shoo-in. Nobody's going to even pay attention. Everyone's going to pay attention to this one. If he's furthering the narrative, one way or the other, this guy, whether it's happening today or it's shortly going to happen, he's not running for re-election. He's all done. What he's going to be running for real soon is his legacy. So every decision he makes is going to be one that he wants the history books to, write, and he wants people to read about in the future about him. I don't think it has anything to do with...
Which kind of goes to Liz's point in a sense. We often find a lot of second-term presidents thinking about their legacy and thinking, all right, what can I do? I'm being hamstrung by Congress domestically. Let's look at foreign policy. Oh, how about peace in the Middle East is my legacy? That'd be good. We saw President Bush tried to do it. President Clinton tried to do it at the end of his. They all seem to think, oh, I can do that and that'll be my legacy. And does he have any more chance than anybody else? I think
that's an interesting thought. But Obama had his shot at Middle East negotiations, if you recall, and then backed off very quickly, saying, turns out to be hard. Guess what? Everyone knew it was pretty tough.
Turns out the job is hard in general.
I do think that, though, also, simultaneously, there is emerging President Obama kind of the bully. I mean, this is something you hear from the right, but I think he is a little bit of a bully. I mean, his statements on the, God, I'm sorry to repeat this term, the fiscal cliff. We have really maybe monetary precipice, whatever. When he came out and kind of hammered the Republicans again right on the eve of having a deal, what was the point of that? I mean, I think he is emerging as a confrontational president, but only with the GOP, not with Iran, not with foreign powers. He's kind of a personal, I don't know.
Well, he's also, when you get into that office, I mean, we all watch it. I mean, the first 6 months, nobody knows where the bathrooms are in the first 6 months. By the time a president ends his first term, he's comfortable in the office, which means he can actually do something in the second term. You know, I don't know if it's so much that I think everybody is equally to blame in Washington now. I hope everybody lays down their arms and we can make some really good decisions together to move the country forward.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, it would be nice.
I mean, that's what they're supposed to do, and we should keep talking about it because they ought to do what we elected them to go there to do, not just pick one side of the aisle and fight all the time.
I was reading last night the Simpson-Bowles Commission report again. I read it when it came out, and I've referred to it occasionally on writing something. And I read it last night. I thought, I remember being so elated when this came out. Of course, there are things in there that I hate. There are things in there that everybody hates. That was the beauty of it. It really took a profoundly grown-up view of what the problem is, how we're going to solve it. I think 99% of Americans would say, thank you, Lord, if we actually got something like that done.
Staying on these nominations for a moment, J.D. LaPointe asks a question. Does anyone ever block one of these nominations? I can't remember such a nomination blocked. J.D., I may be probably older than you, but you only have to go back to 1989, in fact, to find a defense secretary blocked. That was John Tower under the defense secretary nomination blocked, the John Tower under the first President Bush. And I think there have been something like 9 in the last 50 years or so. So it does happen. Do you think there's a serious chance here that Chuck Hagel could be derailed as the nominee?
I do. I mean,
you do?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, he's a Republican. You can say whatever you want about it, why Obama picked him, maybe just because he's a Republican, but without, you know, complete Republican support, which makes it a problem. I think, I think that there is that possibility, which I think would be, you know, I think would be tragic. I think he deserves the spot. He should be in that spot. And we ought not waste a whole lot of the country's time debating these nominees.
What about that point, Liz, that we shouldn't waste the country's time, particularly in foreign policy and defense policy? We as the president said yesterday, we don't want a gap in who is serving now and who is going to serve.
No, I think that's true. I mean, what we found out in the Benghazi investigation is that because there were loose links, you know, all of a sudden something terrible happened. My guess is he'll be confirmed. I think that really what the debate will be about is really, again, not so much Hagel as it is sort of the direction that the Obama is taking our government, and that really isn't a debate we'll have for 4 more years, right? And that'll be about, okay, are we really the country now that is going to be only in a partnership position when we apply force? Are we going to be cutting back the defense budget even more aggressively than we have been? These are incredibly important topics, and I don't think it's going to be determined now.
Realistically, you know, budgets all over the place. There's going to be less money.
Yeah.
So realistically, we have less money there too. So, you know, the framework, the way that we think strategically on a military basis, it's got to change because there's less money.
Well,
so we have to think a little bit differently. We have to think a little bit more about diplomacy, a little bit. It's got to factor in.
Well, I agree. Or a more efficient use of the monies we have. In other words, you know, look, the whole idea that we are spending probably not very much on cyber terrorism and cyber attacks right now, that seems to me like a slam dunk. I mean, that is something clearly we have to address. We have to be not only equal to everybody else, but hopefully better than everybody else on that. My sense is we are not.
But you know what? It's ironic because I think that cyber terrorism is such a... I think we are so vulnerable, this country.
Totally.
Nobody thinks about it because it doesn't seem real. There's no, like, you know, bombs. There's no bodies. There's no, you know, all the things that you see on the news because it's cyber. But it's not. It's your bank accounts. It's the traffic lights. It's the air traffic
millions of
controllers.
attempts to bring down our infrastructure every single day.
Every day. It's a big deal that people don't pay attention to. But on the other hand, the United States offensively, we do. I mean, we use, you know, cyber to our advantage in some countries. Well, I don't know why we don't. Why we're not defending our fort while we're out there.
Well, one person who's in the military has told me that we are, yes, I think the only, what you're referring to, I think, is Iran and stuff next and everything. But there have been remarkably few of those initiatives, as far as we know. I mean, we don't probably know totally what we're doing. But let's say versus China, China is attacking our infrastructure and our government agencies on a daily basis. We are not counterattacking, from what I understand, commensurately. And the view is, if we did that, Chinese government would finally go to all this hacking community and say, okay, you know, time out.
Right, let me come back to the other nomination for a moment. As CIA director, John Brennan, who is currently the senior counterterrorism advisor in the White House. Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham, again has said that he may seek to delay the confirmation of John Brennan until he has what he considers the right answers and enough answers on the attack in Benghazi that killed our ambassador and 3 other Americans. Is that exactly the kind of time wasting that you were just talking about, Ericho, by the way, which one of our viewers said, hey, did he just say they're wasting the country's time? Isn't that Washington's job? But is that
well,
is that what
hey, if you want to pay him to waste our time, God bless you. You're allowed to vote to let him wait. Yes.
Is that political blackmail, or is it necessary?
There's a lot of things that we do need to know. There's a lot of information that we don't have yet that we do need to know. But it's not a reason. Nobody let any of those things happen intentionally. Perhaps there was some oversights, perhaps there was some mistakes, and perhaps some people will raise their hand and say, on my watch, my mistake. But no, don't delay over that.
Liz?
I
mean, it seems the one thing we don't want to delay in is who is running the CIA.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think Brennan's pretty easy confirmation, would be my guess. The issues related to Brennan are those which the GOP won't contest, which is that he had some involvement, John McCain may, but that generally that he may have had some involvement with the enhanced interrogation techniques. Most Republicans aren't going to go to war over that because it opens up a whole can of worms.
For everybody.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I don't think that's an issue. I think I don't think that this is the time. I mean, I don't think it's a waste of time, but I don't think this is the time to interrupt the chain of command in our security apparatus.
But you would agree, aside from the nomination question, Eric, you would agree that there are questions that need to be answered by officials on Benghazi, and that probably chief among those is current Secretary of State Hillary Clinton?
Absolutely. Sure. We all want to look whether we think there is or there isn't. The whole country, people that are interested, we want to know. We want to know what exactly happened there. Can we get people that were in a position of authority to tell us? So that will happen.
Actually, but what Republicans want, and which they will never have, is for the administration to come out and say we lied about what actually happened there. We knew that there was no response to the video. We knew there was no demonstration, but it tied in very nicely to our campaign theme. So we sort of fibbed. All right. They're never going to say that. So we can have 112 hearings on the matter. That's